The emergency alarm screamed through the corridors of the Galactic Alliance station, a massive structure that floated in the empty space between three star systems. Creatures of all shapes and sizes rushed toward the main observation deck, their movements frantic and their voices filled with panic. Through the enormous windows that stretched from floor to ceiling, they could see something that filled their hearts with dread. The Alliance flagship, the greatest ship ever built by the combined efforts of 12 different species, was tumbling through space like a broken toy. Fire burned in several sections. Debris floated away from its wounded hull. The ship that had taken 50 years and the resources of entire planets to build was dying before their eyes. Station Commander Velox, a tall being covered in blue scales, stood at the center of the observation deck. His 4 arms hung limp at his sides as he watched the destruction. Around him, the best minds of the Alliance gathered, but none of them spoke. There were no words for what they were witnessing. "How?" someone finally asked. The voice belonged to Chief Science Officer Thrin, a creature that looked like a floating cloud of purple gas. The flagship was supposed to be indestructible. "The Void Storm," Velox said, his voice heavy with despair. "It came from nowhere. Our sensors did not see it until it was too late. The ship was caught in its center for 3 hours before it managed to escape." A void storm was one of the most dangerous things in the universe. It was a tear in the fabric of space itself, a place where the normal rules of physics broke down completely. Ships that entered a void storm usually never came out. The fact that the flagship had survived at all was a miracle, but looking at the damage, many wondered if survival was the right word. "The damage reports are coming in," announced a young officer from one of the communication stations. His voice trembled as he read the data. Hull integrity at 37%, main engines destroyed, secondary engines barely functioning, life support holding but critical, weapons systems offline, navigation completely gone. "The jump drive?" Velox asked, though he already knew the answer would be bad. "Destroyed, Commander. The core is cracked. Even if we could repair everything else, the ship will never jump between stars again." This was the worst news of all. Without a jump drive, a ship was trapped in whatever system it happened to be in. The flagship was currently 3 months away from the nearest planet at normal speed. 3 months with damaged life support meant that most of the crew would not survive the journey. "We must send rescue ships," Thrin said. "We must save as many as we can." "The nearest ships capable of rescue are 2 weeks away," Velox replied. "By the time they arrive, it may be too late." The gathered officers and scientists looked at each other with hollow eyes. They had faced many challenges in their long history as members of the Alliance. They had fought wars, survived plagues, and overcome natural disasters. But this felt different. This felt like the end of something precious. "There is one option we have not considered," said a quiet voice from the back of the crowd. Everyone turned to look at the speaker. She was a human woman, small compared to most of the other species present. Her name was Maya Tors, and she was the head of the small human engineering team that had been assigned to the station 3 months ago. Humans were still new to the Alliance, having only made contact with other species 15 years earlier. They were not yet trusted with important positions, and many of the older races still viewed them as primitive creatures who had barely learned to leave their own planet. "You have something to say?" Velox asked, his tone making it clear that he did not expect anything useful from her. "I do," Maya said, stepping forward. She was not intimidated by the alien stares that focused on her. "I would like to request permission to take my team to the flagship and attempt repairs." A sound rippled through the crowd. It took Maya a moment to recognize it as laughter. The alien races had many different ways of showing amusement, but the meaning was clear. They thought her idea was ridiculous. "Human," said High Engineer Zaloth, a massive creature made of living crystal, "you do not understand what you are saying. The flagship systems are beyond anything your species has ever created. Your people were still building simple rockets when we were designing ships like this. You could not possibly comprehend the technology, let alone repair it. Maya did not flinch at his words. With respect, High Engineer, I have studied your technology for the past 3 months. My team has identified several weaknesses in your design philosophy. We believe we can help. Weaknesses? Zoloth's crystal body made a sharp cracking sound that indicated anger. Our designs have been refined over thousands of years. What could humans possibly teach us? You build for perfection, Maya said simply. You build things to work exactly as designed forever. When something breaks, you replace it with an identical part. But what happens when you cannot get the exact part you need? What happens when you are stranded in space with only random materials around you? That is why we build to last, Zoloth replied, so that such situations never occur. But they have occurred, Maya said, gesturing toward the window where the damaged flagship still tumbled. Right now, your perfect ship is broken and you cannot fix it because you do not have the perfect parts. Velox raised one of his 4 hands to quiet the murmuring crowd. What are you proposing exactly, human? My people have a long history of making things work when they should not work, Maya said. We call it improvisation. When we do not have the right tool, we make one. When we do not have the right part, we find something else that can do the job. Give me a shuttle, permission to board the flagship, and access to whatever materials are on board. My team will find a way to save that ship. Impossible, Zoloth said. The systems on that ship require precise components manufactured to exact specifications. You cannot simply replace a quantum processor with random pieces of metal. No, Maya agreed. But maybe we can find another way to do what the quantum processor did. Maybe there is a solution that does not require one at all. We will not know until we try. Velox looked at her for a long moment. His species was known for their logical minds, their ability to calculate odds and make decisions based on probability. The probability of humans successfully repairing the flagship was essentially 0. Every calculation told him to refuse her request. But as he looked at the burning ship through the window, he realized that 0 was also the probability of anyone else saving those people. The other engineers had already declared the situation hopeless. At least the human was willing to try. Very well, he said. You have permission to attempt your repairs, but I am also sending High Engineer Zoloth with you. He will provide technical knowledge of the ship systems. Zoloth made another cracking sound. Commander, surely you cannot be serious. This is a waste of time and resources. Perhaps, Velox said, but those are our people on that ship. If there is any chance, we must take it. Prepare to depart immediately. Maya nodded and turned to leave. As she walked toward the shuttle bay, she pulled out her communication device and contacted her team. Everyone, grab your tools. We have work to do. Behind her, the crowd of aliens watched her go with expressions that ranged from doubt to outright mockery. None of them expected to ever see her again. None of them believed that primitive humans could accomplish what the greatest minds in the galaxy could not. They were about to learn something important about humanity. The shuttle cut through the darkness of space, its small engines pushing it toward the massive wounded ship ahead. Inside, Maya stood at the front window, her eyes fixed on their destination. Behind her sat her team of 12 human engineers, along with High Engineer Zoloth, who had not stopped complaining since they left the station. This is a fool's errand, Zoloth said for the 10th time. His crystal body shifted colors from irritated red to frustrated orange. When you see the damage up close, you will understand. There is nothing that can be done. We will see, Maya said simply. You humans are stubborn, Zoloth said. It is one of your most annoying traits. Thank you, Maya replied. We consider it one of our best qualities. One of the human engineers, a young man named Carlos, leaned over to his colleague beside him. "How long do you think until he realizes we are not going to give up?" The other engineer, a woman named Lynn, smiled slightly. "Give him a few hours. He will figure it out." The shuttle approached the flagship and began looking for a place to dock. Most of the docking bays were damaged or blocked by debris, but they eventually found one that was still functional. The shuttle slid inside, and the team gathered their equipment. When the airlock opened, the smell hit them first: burnt metal, melted plastic, and something else that none of them wanted to identify. The interior of the flagship was dark, lit only by emergency lights that flickered on and off. Sparks flew from broken wires overhead. The floor was covered in broken glass and twisted metal. "By the ancient stars," Zaloth whispered. Even he seemed shocked by the extent of the damage. Maya pulled out a flashlight and began moving forward. "Let us find the survivors first, then we assess the damage, then we start fixing things." They found the remaining crew gathered in the central hub of the ship, one of the few areas that still had functioning life support. There were about 300 of them, representing 8 different species. Many were injured. All of them looked exhausted and scared. The ship's captain, a 4-armed being similar to Commander Velox, pushed through the crowd to meet the rescue team. Her name was Captain Selene, and she had served in the Alliance fleet for over a century. "You are the repair team?" she asked, looking at the small group of humans with obvious doubt. "This is all they sent." "We are what you have," Maya said. "We are going to save your ship, Captain." "Save it?" Selene made a sound that was halfway between a laugh and a cry. "Look around you, human. This ship is dead. The best we can hope for is that your shuttle can make several trips to evacuate the crew before life support fails completely." "How long until life support fails?" 12 hours, maybe 15 if we are lucky." Maya turned to her team. "You heard her. We have 12 hours. Carlos, take 3 people and assess the life support systems. Find out what is actually broken and what we can work with. Lynn, take another group and check the engines. I want to know which ones can be repaired and which ones are beyond saving. Everyone else, come with me to engineering. We need to see what tools and materials we have available." The humans scattered without hesitation, moving with purpose through the dark corridors. Zaloth watched them go with his crystal body flickering in confusion. "They did not even look at the technical specifications," he said. "They did not request the design documents or the repair protocols. How do they expect to fix anything without understanding how it works?" "We will figure it out as we go," Maya said. "Come on, High Engineer. Show me where the main engineering bay is." 2 hours later, Maya stood in the center of the engineering bay, surrounded by chaos. Her team had spread out through the room, examining broken machines, sorting through piles of spare parts, and having heated discussions about possible solutions. The floor was covered in paper, as they had started sketching ideas and passing them around. Zaloth watched all of this with growing frustration. "This is not how engineering works," he said. "You need plans, you need calculations, you need to follow the proper procedures." "We do not have time for proper procedures," Maya said, without looking up from the components she was examining. "We have 12 hours to bring this ship back to life. That means we need to think differently." "Think differently about what? The laws of physics do not change just because you are in a hurry." Maya finally turned to face him. "High Engineer, tell me something. Why did the jump drive fail?" "The quantum core was damaged," Zaloth said. "It is a precise piece of equipment that must be manufactured under perfect conditions. We do not have the facilities to create a new one." "No, I mean, what was the core actually doing? What job was it performing?" Zaloth paused. The question seemed strange to him. "It was creating the dimensional fold necessary for jump travel. It is basic physics." "Right, so we need something that can create a dimensional fold. Does it have to be a quantum core specifically, or could something else do the same job?" "Nothing else can do the same job. The quantum core is the only device capable of generating the required energy patterns. But why, Maya pressed? What makes it special? Zaloth spent the next few minutes explaining the technical details of quantum core technology. Maya listened carefully, asking questions when she did not understand something. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment, thinking. So basically, she said slowly, the quantum core generates a specific type of energy that folds space. The reason you use a quantum core is because it can produce that energy cleanly and efficiently. But theoretically, other things could produce the same energy, just not as well. Theoretically, yes, but the alternatives would be massively inefficient and potentially dangerous. How dangerous? There is a small chance of explosion. How small? Zaloth calculated, approximately 15%. Maya smiled. That means an 85% chance it works. Those are good odds. Those are not good odds. In proper engineering, we aim for 99% reliability at minimum. Proper engineering did not stop your ship from flying into a void storm. Right now, we do not need perfect, we need good enough. She turned and called out to her team. Everyone, new priority. We are building an alternative jump drive. The next several hours were unlike anything Zaloth had ever experienced. The humans worked like creatures possessed, talking constantly, arguing sometimes, but always moving forward. They pulled apart broken machines and combined the pieces in ways that made no sense to him. They used tools incorrectly, forcing them to do jobs they were never designed for. They wrapped wires together with tape when they could not find proper connectors. They held pieces in place with string and bent metal when they lacked the right fasteners. This is madness, Zaloth said as he watched Carlos connect two incompatible systems using what appeared to be a piece of pipe. Those components were never meant to work together. They were not, Carlos agreed, but they are working together now. Sometimes you just have to make things fit. Meanwhile, another team was working on life support. They had discovered that the main air processors were completely destroyed, but several smaller backup systems were still functional. The problem was that these backups were scattered throughout the ship and were not connected to each other. Lynn led the effort to solve this problem. We cannot fix the main system, she announced to her group. So we connect all the backups together and make them work as one big system. The backups use different protocols, one of the alien engineers pointed out. He had joined the humans when he saw what they were attempting. They cannot communicate with each other. Then we build a translator, Lynn said. Something that takes the output from one system and converts it to something the other system can understand. That would require programming a new interface from scratch. Then we better start programming. They worked through the night, human and alien engineers side by side. The aliens began to understand what the humans were doing, and slowly, their doubt turned into something like wonder. The humans were not following any of the established rules, but somehow, things were starting to work. At the 8-hour mark, life support stabilized. It was not elegant. The systems were held together by improvised patches and makeshift connections, but air was flowing and people could breathe. At the 10-hour mark, 3 of the secondary engines came back online. They had been declared beyond repair, but the humans had found a way. They had stripped parts from completely destroyed engines and used them to rebuild the damaged ones. The engines did not perform at full capacity, but they worked well enough to move the ship. At the 11-hour mark, Maya gathered everyone in the engineering bay. We have 1 hour left before we would have run out of air. Life support is stable. Engines are functional. Now we tackle the big one. We are going to build a new jump drive. Zaloth stepped forward. His crystal body had shifted to a pale blue color that indicated nervousness. I must officially object to this plan. What you are proposing has never been done. The risks are significant. I understand, Maya said, and your objection is noted. Now will you help us?" Zaloth was quiet for a long moment. He thought about everything he had witnessed over the past 11 hours. He thought about the rules he had followed his entire career, the procedures he had always trusted. Then he thought about the 300 people on this ship who would die if they stayed trapped in this empty space. "Yes," he said finally, "I will help you. May the ancient stars forgive us all." The work on the improvised jump drive was the most intense thing any of them had ever experienced. Maya had divided the task into smaller pieces, assigning teams to each component. Carlos worked on the power supply, trying to generate enough energy from the damaged reactors. Lynn handled the navigation systems, creating a basic interface that could calculate jump coordinates. Other teams worked on the physical structure, building a housing for the device out of whatever materials they could find. The original quantum core had been a masterpiece of engineering, a device that had taken the combined knowledge of 12 species to create. It was elegant and precise, every component perfectly matched to every other. What they were building was none of those things. It was ugly. It was crude. It looked like it had been assembled by children using parts from a junk pile, because in many ways it had been. But as the pieces came together, something remarkable happened. The indicators on the monitoring screens began to show power readings. The energy patterns began to stabilize. Against all logic and probability, the device was working. "I do not believe this," Zaloth whispered as he watched the readings. "This should not be possible. You violated every principle of proper engineering." "Maybe proper engineering is not the only way," Maya said. She was exhausted, her hands covered in grease and small cuts, but her eyes were bright with triumph. "Maybe sometimes the universe rewards those who refuse to give up." Captain Cellini had joined them in the engineering bay. She stared at the improvised jump drive with an expression that mixed disbelief with hope. "Will it actually work? Can we really jump?" "There is one way to find out," Maya said. "We power it up and try." The alien engineers looked at each other nervously. This was the moment of truth. If the device failed, it could explode and destroy what remained of the ship. They could all die in the next few minutes. But if they did nothing, they would die anyway slowly, as their supplies ran out and rescue ships failed to arrive in time. "Do it," Captain Cellini ordered. "Activate the drive." Maya nodded to Carlos, who pressed the activation sequence. The improvised device hummed to life. The power readings climbed higher and higher. The walls of the ship began to vibrate. Everyone held their breath. And then, with a flash of light that filled the view screens, the ship jumped. The journey through jump space was rough. The ship shook and groaned, and warning lights flashed everywhere. But they were moving. They were actually traveling between stars, something that should have been impossible with their damaged vessel. When they emerged from the jump, the Alliance station was visible through the windows. They had made it. They were home. The communication systems crackled to life. Commander Velox's voice filled the air, and for the first time his calm demeanor cracked with emotion. "Flagship, this is Station Command. We received your distress call. We see you on our sensors. How is this possible? We thought you were lost." Captain Cellini looked at Maya and the team of human engineers who had saved her ship and her crew. "Command, this is Flagship. We had some help. Send rescue ships to assist with docking. We have wounded and our systems are barely holding together. But we are alive, Command. Against all odds, we are alive." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Rescue ships surrounded the flagship, helping guide the damaged vessel into a docking bay. Medical teams rushed aboard to help the injured. Engineers from the station came to examine the improvised repairs, their faces showing disbelief at what they saw. The humans had become heroes. Word spread quickly through the station about what they had accomplished. Species that had dismissed humanity as primitive now looked at them with new eyes. Reporters from across the Alliance requested interviews. Government officials sent messages of congratulation. But Maya and her team were too tired for any of that. They collapsed in the station's rest area, sleeping for the first time in over 20 hours. When Maya woke, she found High Engineer Zaloth standing near her bed. His crystal body was glowing with a soft purple color she had not seen before. "That color," she said, sitting up slowly. "What does it mean?" "It means respect," Zaloth said. "I owe you an apology, Maya Tors. I doubted your people. I thought your methods were foolish and primitive. I was wrong." "You were following what you knew," Maya said. "There is no shame in that." "There is shame in refusing to learn." Zaloth sat down on a nearby chair. "I have been an engineer for 300 years. I have built ships and stations and devices that your species could not imagine. I thought I knew everything there was to know about creating things. But yesterday, you showed me something new." "What is that?" "Hope," Zaloth said. "Your species does not give up. Even when logic says a task is impossible, you try anyway. You believe that there is always a solution, even when no one else can see it. I have never encountered this before." Maya smiled. "It is one of our greatest strengths, maybe our only strength, really. We are not the smartest species. We are not the strongest. We do not have the best technology or the most resources, but we do not quit, ever." "That is a powerful thing," Zaloth said. "I think the Alliance has underestimated your people." "Most species do," Maya agreed. "We are used to it." The door opened and Carlos entered with the rest of the team. They looked rested, though still tired around the edges. They carried food and drinks, which they shared with Maya and Zaloth. "Have you heard the news?" Carlos asked. "The council is meeting right now to discuss what happened. They want to give us some kind of award." "That is nice," Lynn said, not sounding particularly interested. "What I really want is a hot shower and a real bed." "There is something else," Carlos continued. "They are talking about creating a new position in the Alliance, a human engineering consultant for every major ship and station. They want our methods to spread to other teams." Maya raised an eyebrow. "They want to teach other species to improvise." "Something like that. They are calling it adaptive engineering, the ability to create solutions using whatever is available without depending on perfect conditions or specific parts." Zaloth made a sound that might have been a laugh. "They have a fancy name for what you did. I was there. What you did was more simple than that. You refused to let the situation defeat you." "That is the human way," Maya said. "We have a saying on Earth. Where there is a will, there is a way. It means that if you want something badly enough, you will find a way to make it happen." "Even if that means breaking the rules?" Zaloth asked. "Especially if that means breaking the rules." The door opened again, and this time it was Commander Velox who entered. He moved slowly, his 4 arms clasped behind his back. His expression was serious, but there was something else there too, something that looked almost like warmth. "Maya Tors," he said, "the Council has reached a decision. They would like to see you." Maya stood up, brushing crumbs off her uniform. "Now." "Now." The council chamber was the most impressive room on the station. It was circular, with seats arranged in rising tiers around a central platform. Representatives from all 12 Alliance species were present, their eyes fixed on Maya as she walked to the center of the room. "Maya Tors of Earth," said the council speaker, an ancient being whose species had been traveling between stars for 10,000 years. "You and your team have done something extraordinary. You saved 300 lives and preserved the greatest ship our Alliance has ever built. The Council wishes to express its gratitude." "We were just doing our job," Maya said. "No," the speaker replied. "You were doing more than that. You were showing us something we had forgotten. Our Alliance is old. Our technology is advanced. But somewhere along the way, we lost something important. We lost the ability to adapt, to improvise, to face impossible odds and find a way through anyway." The speaker pressed a button, and a holographic image appeared in the center of the room. It was the improvised jump drive, displayed in all its ugly, mismatched glory. "This device should not work," the speaker continued. "Every calculation says it should fail. Every principle of engineering says it is flawed beyond function. But it works. It works because your people do not accept failure as an option." Maya looked at the device she had helped create. It really was ugly, she thought. Wires sticking out everywhere, pieces that did not quite fit together, tape and string holding things in place. But there was also something beautiful about it. It was a monument to determination, a symbol of what could be accomplished when people refused to give up. "Humanity has only been part of this alliance for 15 years, the speaker said. "In that time, many of us have viewed your species as primitive, as newcomers who had nothing to teach us. We were wrong. Today, you have taught us all a lesson that we needed to learn." The speaker rose from his seat, and the other council members rose with him. "Maya Tours, on behalf of the Galactic Alliance, I offer you and your team the highest honor we can bestow. From this day forward, human engineers will serve on every Alliance vessel. Your methods, your spirit, your refusal to accept defeat will spread throughout our civilization. You will make us all stronger." Maya felt her heart swell with pride, not just for herself but for all of humanity. They had spent 15 years proving themselves, fighting against prejudice and doubt, and now, finally, they had earned their place among the stars. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady. "We will not let you down." In the weeks that followed, everything changed. Human engineers were assigned to ships and stations across the Alliance. They brought with them not just their skills, but their philosophy. They taught their alien colleagues to think differently, to see problems as challenges rather than obstacles. The method spread quickly. Reports came in from across the galaxy of successful improvised repairs, of impossible situations overcome through creativity and determination. The term adaptive engineering became common, but everyone knew where it really came from. It came from that group of humans who had refused to let a damaged ship die. Maya received offers to lead new projects, to take prestigious positions, to become famous throughout the galaxy. She turned most of them down. She was an engineer, not a politician or a celebrity. She wanted to be where the work was, where she could get her hands dirty and solve problems. But she did accept one offer. The Alliance decided to build a new flagship, one that would be even greater than the one that had been damaged. They wanted Maya to lead the engineering team. She accepted on one condition. The new ship would be designed with adaptive engineering principles built in from the start. It would have redundant systems that could be easily modified. It would carry supplies and tools for improvised repairs. It would be a ship that could survive anything, not because it was perfect, but because it could be changed and adapted when things went wrong. The council agreed. On the day construction began, Maya stood on the observation deck, watching the first pieces of the new ship come together. Zaloth stood beside her, along with the other members of her original team. "Hard to believe how much has changed," Carlos said. "A few months ago, nobody thought we belonged here. Now they are asking us to build their most important ship." "We earned it," Lynn said. "We proved ourselves." "We proved more than that," Maya replied. "We proved that there is more than one way to be great. The Alliance was built on the idea that the universe rewards the strong, the smart, the advanced. But there is another kind of strength. The strength to keep going when everything says you should stop. The strength to find a way when there is no way." She looked up at the stars, thinking about everything humanity had overcome to reach this point. The wars, the disasters, the moments when extinction seemed certain. Every time they had found a way through. Every time they had refused to give up. "That is what we bring to the galaxy," she said. "Not superior technology, not ancient wisdom. We bring hope. We bring the belief that no matter how bad things get, there is always a chance. And as long as there is a chance, we will fight for it." The new flagship took 3 years to build. When it was finished, it was the most adaptable ship in existence, a vessel that could transform itself to meet any challenge. It was named the Human Spirit, a choice that surprised no one. On its first mission, it encountered a situation that would have destroyed any other ship. A previously unknown anomaly caught it in the middle of deep space, damaging critical systems. But the crew did not panic. They had been trained in adaptive engineering. They knew how to improvise. They survived. They thrived. And when they returned home, they brought back knowledge that expanded the understanding of the entire alliance. This became the pattern. Human-influenced ships consistently performed better in crises than their traditional counterparts. Human engineers became the most requested specialists in the galaxy, and slowly, over decades, the entire alliance began to change. The old ways did not disappear. They had value too. Precise engineering, careful planning, perfect construction, these things still mattered. But now they were combined with something new. The human willingness to adapt, to improvise, to never give up. The combination was more powerful than either approach alone. And it all started with a damaged ship and a team of engineers who refused to accept that anything was impossible. Maya lived a long life, extended by Alliance medical technology. She saw humanity grow from a junior member of the galactic community to an essential partner. She saw the principles she had demonstrated spread throughout known space. She saw the universe become a little bit more hopeful, a little bit more willing to fight against impossible odds. When she finally passed away, her funeral was attended by beings from across the galaxy. They came to honor not just her, but what she represented: the human spirit, the belief that no matter what challenges arise, there is always a way through. Her last words, recorded in the Alliance archives for all time, were simple and direct. They captured everything she believed, everything that made humanity special. "Never give up," she said. "Never accept that something cannot be done. The universe is vast and full of wonders, and it belongs to those who refuse to stop reaching for it." These words became a motto for the Alliance. They were inscribed on ships and stations throughout the galaxy. They were taught to every young engineer, regardless of species. They became a reminder that the greatest technology in the universe is not some advanced device. It is the simple, stubborn, beautiful refusal to accept defeat. And that is the story of how human engineers rebuilt the Starship, and how their innovation overcame cosmic destruction. It is a story about the power of hope, the value of determination, and the endless potential that lies within the human spirit. It is a story that belongs not just to Maya Torres and her team, but to all of humanity. In the end, that is what made humans special, not their technology, not their resources, not their physical abilities. It was their spirit. Their unbreakable, unstoppable spirit that said, "No matter what, we will find a way." And they did. They always did.